You probably don't remember your first cup of instant coffee. Years later, the setting changed. You have great variety of choices. You can have machine coffee, a cup of coffee from a famous chain like Starbucks, a cozy one from any nearby cafeteria, etc. And yet, there's still an instant coffee sachet still sits by your side, a quiet witness to all the versions of you that came and went. Have you ever stopped, mid-stir, and wondered what's really behind those tiny granules? How is instant coffee made? Today, we'll trace that story, from farm to factory to your cup, right here on Secrets of Simple Things. Before we dive in, take a second. So hit subscribe, pour yourself another cup, and let's discover the surprising truth behind instant coffee, right here on Secrets of Simple Things. Like every cup of coffee, instant coffee starts its life on a farm, under the hot sun of Brazil, Vietnam, Ethiopia, or Colombia. The two main species of beans are Arabica and Robusta. Arabica is the smooth talker, gentle, aromatic, a little bit refined. Robusta, the fighter, bold, bitter, and packing almost twice the caffeine. Instant coffee manufacturers often choose Robusta. Why? Because it's stronger, cheaper, and its flavor holds up through industrial processing. It's the coffee equivalent of a dependable workhorse. Not fancy, but it never lets you down. Once ripe, the cherries are harvested, by hand on small farms or by machines on massive estates, then stripped of their fruit, washed, and sun-dried. But beans destined for instant coffee follow a slightly different path. They're roasted darker to enhance solubility and intensify the flavor. A deep, smoky roast ensures that even after dehydration, what's left behind still tastes unmistakably like coffee. In a factory, giant roasting drums spin slowly, heating beans to 200,230 degrees Celsius. Inside, a tiny universe unfolds. Sugars caramelize, oils escape. Molecules rearrange into hundreds of aroma compounds, that familiar scent that can wake you before your alarm clock does. The longer the roast, the darker and more bitter the flavor. When the beans turn a rich chestnut brown and release their first fragrant crackle, they're ready. They're then cooled quickly and ground into a coarse powder, the base for what will soon become billions of instant coffees around the world. Here's where instant coffee parts ways with your regular brew. Instead of stopping at grinding, the factory brews the coffee again, but on a massive scale. Imagine a coffee maker the size of a swimming pool. That's essentially what happens. Thousands of liters of coffee are brewed under high pressure and precise temperature control. The ideal range is 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. Too hot, and the flavor turns harsh and bitter. Too cool, and the extraction falls flat. Every variable is measured, timed, and tuned for one goal: to extract every drop of flavor and caffeine possible. The result? A rich, concentrated coffee essence, thick, dark, and aromatic. But how do you turn that liquid gold into the tiny crystals you find in your jar? That's where the real magic begins. Before instant coffee filled office desks and soldiers' canteens, it began with a single idea, one born at the crossroads of chemistry and curiosity. The first person to invent instant coffee was Satoru Kato, a Japanese chemist working in Chicago in 1901. Kato had already developed a method for making instant tea and applied the same process to coffee. He presented his discovery at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York, a world fair celebrating modern innovation. His coffee powder could dissolve quickly in water, producing a drink that was revolutionary for its time. But Kato's invention didn't take off right away. The flavor wasn't perfect, and people weren't ready to trade the ritual of brewing for a spoonful of science. A few years later, in 1910, an Englishman named George Constant Lewis Washington, a chemist living in Guatemala, noticed dried coffee residue on the edge of his silver pot. Inspired, He refined Kato's concept and created the first commercially successful instant coffee brand, Red E-Coffee. Then came the global breakthrough. In 1938, Nestlé introduced Nescafé, a formula developed with the Brazilian government to preserve surplus coffee beans. Their process used spray drying and better flavor retention, turning instant coffee from a curiosity into a worldwide staple, especially during World War II, when soldiers needed caffeine that was quick, light, and portable. Turning liquid into powder may sound simple, but it's an elegant process that balances chemistry, airflow, and temperature. There are two main methods: spray drying and freeze drying. Spray drying, the speed demon. In spray drying, the concentrated coffee is pumped into a tall chamber. Jets of hot air, around 200 degrees Celsius, 392 degrees Fahrenheit, swirl inside as the liquid is sprayed into a fine mist. Each droplet dries almost instantly mid-air, falling as a soft brown powder. It's fast and cost-efficient, perfect for large-scale production. But it comes at a price. Some of coffee's more delicate aromas get lost in the heat. Still, this method gives us the smooth, dissolvable granules that make morning routines possible in seconds. Freeze drying, the flavor keeper. Freeze drying is the premium path, slower, colder, and more flavorful. First, the brewed coffee is frozen at 40 degrees Celsius into solid slabs. These are shattered into tiny pieces, then placed inside a vacuum chamber. Under low pressure, the ice sublimates. It turns directly from solid to vapor without melting. What's left behind? Chunky, crystalline coffee granules that retain more of the bean's aroma and taste. If your instant coffee has bigger, shiny crystals, it's freeze-dried. If it looks like fine powder, it's spray-dried. Each method tells a story of time versus taste, efficiency or elegance. Once the drying is done, the coffee is sealed away from air and moisture, its two greatest enemies. Granules are measured precisely, then packed into airtight jars, tins, or sachets, ready to survive years on a supermarket shelf. Instant coffee's biggest strength is its longevity. While freshly ground coffee fades within weeks, instant coffee can last for years, still flavorful, still aromatic. Manufacturers sometimes add back a touch of natural coffee oils or aromas, recaptured during the brewing process. It's like returning a missing note to a melody, restoring what heat and time have taken away. Let's talk about the bias that instant coffee often faces. Instant coffee doesn't always get the respect it deserves. Coffee purists might call it the fast food of caffeine. But the truth is more nuanced. Instant coffee is fast, convenient, affordable, and often the first taste of coffee for millions of people worldwide. No machines, no filters, no mess, just add water. From office desks to hotel rooms, mountain treks to military rations, instant coffee has fueled our mornings, our workdays, and even our wars. During World War II, it became a soldier's comfort, easy to pack and quick to brew, and it's never really left us. Today, even astronauts aboard the International Space Station sip rehydrated coffee crystals floating in zero-gravity pouches. Instant coffee can't quite match the rich complexity of a fresh espresso, but modern technology has narrowed the gap dramatically. Freeze-drying preserves the subtle chocolate, nutty, or floral notes we associate with Arabica beans. Meanwhile, advanced flavor capture techniques reintroduce volatile compounds lost during drying. The result? Some premium instant coffees today can rival barista-made brews. Brands like Voila, Sudden Coffee, and Starbucks Via have reinvented the instant cup, a fusion of craft and convenience. Instant coffee isn't just a beverage, it's a story of human ingenuity. It's the tale of how we've learned to bottle comfort, speed, and ritual into a single scoop. From farms under the equatorial sun to gleaming factories of stainless steel, every granule carries a journey of farmers, engineers, chemists, and yes, sleepy morning drinkers who depend on it. Coffee, whether instant or freshly ground, is about connection. To ourselves, to others, to the moment. That's the hidden warmth behind every mug, the future in a jar. As technology improves, instant coffee is evolving too. Sustainability drives new methods, recyclable packaging, fair trade sourcing, and low-energy drying systems. Some brands are experimenting with instant cold brew, microcrystals that dissolve perfectly in cold water, keeping the freshness of slow-steeped coffee. So maybe the future of coffee isn't about choosing between instant and artisan, but about blending both worlds, speed and soul. When you next stir your cup and watch those tiny crystals disappear, remember, it's not magic, it's chemistry, craftsmanship, and culture condensed into seconds. Each granule once lived as a cherry on a faraway branch. It felt the rain, the heat, the human hands that picked it. It traveled through fire, steam, pressure, and frost, all to reach your kitchen counter. So when that aroma rises and your morning begins to clear, take a second to notice it. This humble cup holds the story of the world, soil, science, and a hint of sweetness. From Cato's first lab experiment to Washington's first commercial blend, and then Nestle's world-changing breakthrough, instant coffee evolved from chemistry to culture. A story brewed in persistence, practicality, and a little caffeine-fueled genius. And if you've ever watched a scene in a film, a detective sipping from a paper cup at midnight, a writer staring at a blank page beside a steaming mug, or a soldier taking one quiet moment before dawn, you've seen what instant coffee really represents. The pause that keeps the world moving. When you twist open that humble jar, remember what's inside. Decades of invention, the hum of distant factories, the steady hands of farmers who turned red cherries into brown gold. Instant coffee isn't just fast, it's the miracle of making time wait for you. Maybe that's why we keep coming back to it. Not just for caffeine, but for comfort, for routine, for the small, steady warmth that makes chaos feel human again. Because sometimes, the simplest things remind us that life doesn't need to be complicated to be beautiful. So whether you swear by the slow drip or trust your little jar of magic powder, remember, every cup has its own story, every sip a trace of someone's craft. Before we uncover the hidden risks, we need to slow down and truly understand what instant coffee is. Not the marketing version, not the convenience myth, but the process behind the powder we dissolve every morning. At its most basic level, instant coffee is nothing more than brewed coffee that has been stripped of its water. What remains is a concentrated form, tiny crystals or fine powder, waiting to be brought back to life with a splash of hot water. On the surface, it sounds simple, almost innocent. But the truth becomes more complicated once we look at how those crystals are made. Because not all instant coffee is created with the same respect for flavor or for the ingredients themselves. There are two primary methods used around the world, and they sit on opposite ends of a spectrum. One crafted with care, the other engineered for speed and cost. 1. Freeze-drying, the preservation method. This is the gold standard. Coffee is brewed with intention, then rapidly frozen to lock in its natural chemistry. The frozen slabs are shattered into pieces and placed inside a vacuum chamber. Here, the ice doesn't melt, it evaporates directly into vapor, leaving behind beautifully formed crystals of pure coffee. This slow, meticulous process preserves the delicate oils, aromas, and flavor compounds that define a genuinely good cup. Freeze-dried instant coffee tends to smell richer, taste deeper, and feel closer to the real thing. It's a more expensive method, yes. It takes longer, but quality always does. 2. Spray drying, the shortcut. Then there is the industrial approach. The brewed coffee is turned into a fine mist and blasted with scorching hot air inside a massive drying tower. As the droplets fall, the water disappears and a dull, lifeless powder collects at the bottom. Most of the natural oils vanish in the heat. The aromatic compounds burn off. What remains is something technically called coffee, yet stripped of the complexity that makes coffee enjoyable. Spray drying is why so many instant coffees taste harsh, flat, or aggressively bitter, more like scorched dust than a comforting morning ritual. So the real truth is this: instant coffee itself isn't the villain. It's the method behind it, and the additives mixed in afterward that decide whether the cup in your hand is worth drinking, or whether it's something you should think twice about before taking your next sip. How instant coffee conquered the world. Instant coffee didn't rise from luxury or indulgence. It rose from survival. Its popularity exploded during World War II, when soldiers needed caffeine that wouldn't spoil, that could travel across oceans, survive the trenches, and dissolve instantly in freezing rain or scorching desert heat. It was fuel, reliable, portable, unbreakable, and when the war ended, a new battle began: the rise of industrial life. As factories multiplied and cities swelled, people demanded speed, convenience, and efficiency in everything, including their morning cup. Manufacturers responded by perfecting the art of roasting, drying, and packaging coffee in ways that matched the rhythm of a working-class world always in motion. Instant coffee became the drink of the soldier returning home, the factory worker on a 5 a.m. shift, the student rushing out the door, textbooks in hand. It moved quietly, almost invisibly, from military supply kits into family kitchens, from emergency rations into daily habits. Over time, it stopped being a novelty and became something else entirely, what millions now casually refer to as normal coffee. But convenience is never free. Every shortcut, every time-saving invention carries two sides, one bright and helpful, and one hidden in the shadows, waiting for us to finally look closer. What makes some brands risky? Here's where the story turns from nostalgic to unsettling. Instant coffee has higher levels of acrylamide than freshly brewed coffee. Acrylamide is a chemical formed during high-heat processing, and instant coffee often undergoes more aggressive roasting and heat exposure. In small amounts, acrylamide is unavoidable. In excess, it becomes a potential neurotoxin and carcinogen. Still, acrylamide is only the beginning. Many instant coffee mixes, especially the 3-in-1 packets, contain palm oil derivatives, including partially hydrogenated fats, synthetic creamers loaded with sodium caseinate, phosphate additives linked to kidney strain, artificial flavors, up to 6 teaspoons of sugar per packet. And beyond the ingredients, there are problems that happen behind factory doors. Batches contaminated with glass fragments. Packets tainted with melamine, the same chemical behind the baby formula scandals. Mold contamination due to improper storage. Pesticide residues left from poorly regulated coffee farms, etc. Instant coffee can be safe, but it can also be a risk when some companies decide to have shortcut. Myths about cheap or strong coffee. Let's break down the beliefs many people still cling to. Myth 1. Instant coffee is 100% safe. Reality. It depends on the brand, the factory, and the process. Myth 2. 3-in-1 packs are healthy because they're convenient. Reality. Most contain artificial creamer and trans fats banned in many countries. Myth 3. Stronger flavor means better coffee. Reality. Sometimes strong means over-roasted, burned, or oxidized, which increases toxins and decreases quality. Convenience can be wonderful, but only when it doesn't hide risks behind the flavor. The 7 instant coffee brands to avoid at all costs. Now comes the part many people have been waiting for. These are the 7 brands experts warn against, based on recalls, chemical content, ingredient lists, and independent testing. 1. Clover Valley Instant Coffee. This brand faced recalls after glass fragments were found inside jars. Even a tiny shard can cause internal injuries. That alone puts it on the avoid list permanently. 2. Maxwell House. Once beloved, now infamous for a chemical-like aftertaste. Reviews consistently describe it as burnt plastic or industrial bitterness, likely caused by low-grade beans over-roasted to cover defects. 3. Folgers. Notorious for pesticide traces, weak flavor, and inconsistent quality. Cheap beans, cheap production, and no transparency on sourcing. 4. Nescafé 3-in-1 Mix. This one is everywhere, but every packet contains trans fats, refined sugar, and palm oil-based creamers. It's more dessert than coffee, and a risky one. 5. Dunkin' Iced Coffee Mix. Packed with phosphate additives, which give creaminess but can strain kidneys when consumed often. 6. Trader Joe's Instant Mix. Surprisingly filled with artificial additives, anti-caking agents, and processed sweeteners. Not the clean product one would expect from the brand. 7. Starbucks Via. While the flavor is good, testing shows acrylamide levels almost twice as high as some brewed coffees. Not harmful in small amounts, but daily consumption raises concerns. Remember, not all danger comes from poison. Sometimes it comes from what's missing: real coffee. The 5 brands worth your money. Amid all the noise, there are brands doing things right. Here are the 5 that consistently rise above the rest. 1. Illy Intenso Instant Pure. Balanced, no additives. Taste closest to true espresso, made from high-grade Arabica beans. 2. Whole Foods 365 Organic Instant Organic. Clean and gently processed. One of the safest everyday choices. 3. Mount Hagen Organic Freeze-Dried. Widely considered the gold standard. Tastes like drip coffee because it's sourced ethically and freeze-dried with care. 4. Café Bustelo Strong. Bold, affordable. A cult favorite with minimal processing and no chemical creamers. 5. Chamberlain Coffee Instant Sticks Organic. Smooth and transparent about sourcing. A modern brand that proves convenience can still be clean. In the vast sea of convenience, there are still honest choices. Why we love instant coffee anyway? Instant coffee is more than a drink. It's a memory. And honestly, it's a habit we've repeated so many times that it's practically muscle memory at this point. Think about where instant coffee usually lives. Not in fancy cafes or marble counter kitchens with $600 grinders. No, it belongs to dorm rooms where students try to survive another night of cramming, where the smell of instant coffee mixes with highlighters, panic, and the soft whisper of, "Please let me pass this exam." It sits on office desks too, next to stacks of papers, blinking notifications, and deadlines heavy enough to make caffeine feel like a weak emotion. The cup may be small, but the stress? That's the real espresso shot. Instant coffee travels with us like a loyal sidekick. It hides in suitcases on long road trips, ready for that moment when the gas station coffee looks like swamp water, but you still need something, anything, to stay awake. It finds its way into backpacks on camping trips, where a warm drink becomes less of a beverage and more of a spiritual experience. And let's not forget military camps, where a simple hot cup becomes a rare moment of humanity. In places where everything feels temporary or unpredictable, That tiny packet of instant coffee becomes a connection to normal life, a pause, a breath. Instant coffee has never been about luxury. It was never designed to be worshipped, admired, or posted on Instagram with latte art and poetic captions. It was made for survival, for routine, for people who live fast lives, who work long hours, who don't have access, time, or the budget for specialty beans roasted by a man named Luca with a mustache that costs more than your monthly rent. It's a drink tied to real people: students, nurses, truck drivers, night shift workers, parents, etc. It fits into their lives because it asks for nothing. No equipment, no skill, no ceremony. Just hot water and hope. And yes, let's be honest, instant coffee doesn't always taste perfect. Sometimes it tastes like coffee, sometimes like coffee-ish, and sometimes like a mistake you are strangely willing to make again tomorrow. So even when doubts creep in, even when you read too many articles about how instant coffee is made, or why your cup might be lying to you, you still find yourself opening another packet. Instant coffee is not just a drink, it's a habit. But the simplest things, especially the ones we consume daily, deserve the most attention. Because convenience isn't free. There's always a cost. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's health. Don't worry, you don't need to throw away your instant coffee. You only need to choose wisely. Skip the brands that hide behind chemicals and avoid the ones recalled for safety issues. Reach instead for the clean, the honest, the transparent. Because the biggest risk in instant coffee isn't in the cup itself. It's in the habit of drinking something every day, without ever questioning it. So tell us in the comments, the coffee your life needs. Think about your mornings for a moment. Not the perfect ones we imagine, but the real ones we live through. Some mornings arrive quietly. There's no rush, no one waiting, just enough time to stand still, heat some water, and let the smell of coffee fill the room. Other mornings feel different. Time moves a little faster. The day is already calling. You reach for something warm, something familiar, something that helps you begin. Neither kind of morning is better than the other. They're simply different. And so are the coffees we choose. We don't drink the same coffee every day because life doesn't give us the same kind of day every morning. So before asking which coffee is better, it might be worth pausing to ask a gentler question. What kind of moment was this cup meant to serve? Instant coffee, not a shortcut, a response. To understand why these two coffees exist, we don't need to memorize dates. We only need to understand how people once lived. For centuries, coffee belonged to a slower world. In places like Yemen, long before modern machines, coffee was brewed in simple pots and shared in groups. It wasn't something you grabbed on the way out. It was something you sat down with. Coffee created space for conversation, for ritual, for waiting. The brewing time wasn't a flaw. It was part of the experience. As coffee moved through the Ottoman world and into Europe, that idea stayed the same. Cafes were places to linger, to talk, to pass time together. But the world didn't stay slow. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, life began to compress. Factories ran on schedules. Trains moved faster than people could walk. Wars pushed millions across borders. Time was no longer something to enjoy. It became something to manage. And that's when instant coffee appeared. It didn't begin as a shortcut. It began as a solution. Coffee still needed to start the day, but now it had to travel, to last longer, to work anywhere. That's why instant coffee was created. Not to replace brewed coffee, but to survive a faster world. Coffee that lives twice. Not fake, just paused. After centuries of slow mornings and long conversations, coffee learned how to move faster. But it didn't change all at once. It still began the same way. Beans were roasted, ground, and brewed with hot water, just like any other coffee. For brewed coffee, the journey ends there. The cup is filled, the moment is lived, and then it passes. But for instant coffee, the journey doesn't stop at the cup. That freshly brewed coffee keeps traveling. Instead of being poured and enjoyed, it's gently dried. Its water is removed. Its shape changes, but its identity doesn't. What remains is not raw powder, not a shortcut, not something artificial. It's coffee that has already lived once. And when you add hot water later, at home, at work, or somewhere far from a kitchen, you're not starting from the beginning. You're continuing the journey. That's the quiet difference hiding in plain sight. Brewed coffee exists in a single moment. Instant coffee exists across moments. You're not drinking a shortcut. You're drinking a second version of time. And once you see it that way, the argument changes. Instant coffee and brewed coffee. Not worse, just different. Once you understand the journey coffee has taken, the conversation about flavor begins to feel different. Because flavor isn't a moral score. It isn't a badge of correctness or a sign that one choice is superior to another. Flavor is simply the outcome of a series of decisions made along the way. Freshly brewed coffee is shaped by immediacy. The beans are ground, hot water meets the coffee, and extraction happens in real time. Aromas rise quickly. Oils stay intact. You can often smell the difference the moment the coffee is brewed. That's why brewed coffee tends to feel richer, fuller, and more layered. Depending on the bean in the roast, you might notice fruity notes, soft chocolate tones, or hints of caramel appearing and fading as the cup cools. That depth comes from being present. Nothing is held back. Nothing is paused for later. Instant coffee lives a longer, more complicated life. Along its journey, the coffee is brewed, then dried, then stored, waiting to be brought back again with hot water. During that process, some of the lighter, more fragile aromas gradually quiet down. Not because something went wrong, not because the coffee was poorly made, but because time, storage, and transport ask for something different. As a result, instant coffee is often described as thinner, sometimes slightly bitter, with fewer layers than a freshly brewed cup. Some brands have worked hard to improve this, and certain instant coffees can taste surprisingly good. But even then, the experience is different. For people who approach coffee as a ritual or an art form, those missing layers matter. The act of brewing, the waiting, the aroma filling the room, all of it is part of what they value. But this is where the conversation usually becomes unfair. Because instant coffee wasn't trying to win the same contest. It didn't lose flavor by accident. It traded flavor for something else. For speed, for consistency, for the ability to be used anywhere, at any time. No machine, no filters, no cleanup. Just hot water, a stir, and a familiar taste. That trade makes sense in certain moments. Early work days, long trips, campsites, hotel rooms, or any situation where stopping to brew simply isn't possible. Brewed coffee, on the other hand, asks for time and attention. It needs equipment. It needs space. Sometimes it even needs patience and precision. And when that time is available, the reward can feel worth it. So the difference in flavor isn't a verdict. It's a reflection of what each coffee was designed to protect. One protects depth and immediacy. The other protects access and reliability. And neither choice says anything negative about the person holding the cup. Health. Small differences, big myths. Once flavor is set aside, health is usually the next concern. And again, the answer isn't found in labels, but in understanding what each coffee goes through. Health. The benefits. From a purely coffee perspective, Both instant and brewed coffee start with the same beans. That means both deliver the familiar benefits people expect from coffee: antioxidants, improved mental alertness, and, when consumed moderately, a reduced risk of certain long-term diseases. Brewed coffee often retains slightly more of these compounds. Because it's extracted fresh and consumed immediately, more of the natural oils and antioxidants remain intact. Instant coffee, on the other hand, usually contains a bit less caffeine. For some people, that's not a drawback at all. It can mean fewer jitters, less restlessness, and a gentler lift throughout the day. So even at this level, the benefits already reflect different needs. Health, the limitations. The differences become clearer when we look more closely. Instant coffee is typically roasted darker and processed further. During that process, a compound called acrylamide can form. Instant coffee tends to contain slightly more of it. While high levels of acrylamide can be harmful, the amounts found in coffee are widely considered safe. For most people, it's not a practical concern, especially when coffee is enjoyed in moderation. Another point of confusion comes from ingredients. Pure instant coffee, made only from coffee and water, doesn't require preservatives or stabilizers. But instant coffee mixes tell a different story. When sugar, powdered creamers, emulsifiers, or flavorings are added, the health conversation shifts. Now the question isn't about coffee itself, but about regular intake of sugar, fats, and additives. These ingredients are regulated and approved, but over time, moderation becomes important. Brewed coffee avoids this issue entirely, as long as nothing extra is added to the cup. So again, the limitation isn't universal. It depends on the form the coffee takes. Environment, the benefits. Then there's the question of environmental impact. At first glance, brewed coffee seems more natural. Used grounds can be composted. Reusable filters and French presses can reduce waste significantly. When brewed thoughtfully, traditional coffee can fit well into a low-waste routine. Instant coffee, however, carries an unexpected advantage. Because it's dehydrated, it weighs less, travels more efficiently, and often requires less packaging per serving. In large-scale transport, that efficiency can translate into a smaller carbon footprint. Environment, the limitations. But neither option is impact-free. Brewed coffee can become wasteful quickly when paper filters, disposable pods, or single-use capsules are involved. Instant coffee, while efficient in transport, often relies on single-serve packaging that's difficult to recycle. In both cases, the biggest environmental factor isn't the brewing method, it's how the coffee is sourced, packaged, and consumed. Bringing it together. So when it comes to health and the environment, there's no clear verdict, only patterns. Each type of coffee protects certain benefits while accepting certain limitations. And once again, the differences don't point to a winner, they point to intention. When you look at it closely, coffee was never meant to be a competition. Brewed coffee and instant coffee exist for different moments, and understanding that is what allows us to use both more wisely. Drinking coffee smartly means choosing what fits your day, not out of habit, but with awareness. Using what you need, avoiding excess sugar and additives, and enjoying coffee in moderation. It also means being mindful of waste, reusing when possible, composting grounds, and choosing packaging and methods that make sense for your life. In the end, there's no better coffee. There's only better choices. Choices that respect your time, your health, and the world around you. And sometimes, the simplest cup is already enough. Thank you for joining us on Secrets of Simple Things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details. Our team uses publicly available online sources and AI-assisted research tools to create this video. We strive for accuracy, but errors or omissions may still occur. So please view this content for entertainment purposes only and use your own judgment when considering any information presented. Nothing here is intended as professional, legal, medical, financial, or safety advice, nor as encouragement for risky or illegal actions. We do not promote hate, harassment, violence, or misleading information, and we work to comply with YouTube's community guidelines, terms of service, copyright and fair use rules, and all applicable laws. If you believe any part of this video infringes your rights or violates YouTube policy, please contact us.